Gamera tier list. Let's do it. I kicked around whether or not I actually wanted to do a video like this. I thought about maybe saving it for the end of my Gamera retrospective series, but at this point in time, I feel like I am good to go and that I could easily do a tier list without spoiling my thoughts on the future movies. If you're new to the channel and you just randomly saw this in your feed, hi, welcome. I am currently making a series of Gamera videos where I go over each movie and do a sort of retrospective on them, but this is not that. This is a very quick kind of overview talking about each movie and then ranking them on the tier list. So first up, we have Gamera The Giant Monster. The very first entry, it's black and white, it's very low budget, it's very ambitious for its time, but in the grand scheme of things, in the overall franchise, I would have to say that it's B tier for me. I think that the writing is very hit or miss, and in general, it's solid for laying the groundwork for what Gamera could be, but there's just so many ideas that don't work. The big one being there's a child character who's always like, oh, Gamera is good-natured, and meanwhile, like, in that exact same scene, Gamera is straight up murdering God knows how many people. The writing is not great, and the elements that are introduced are expanded upon better in future movies, and in general, I just think that it's scrappy, it's solid, but it's nothing to really write home about. Next, we've got Gamera vs. Barugon, a very serious movie, which is kind of shocking for the general, Showa-era Gamera stuff, since that entire era of Gamera is often written off as being just kiddie bullshit. However, Gamera vs. Barugon has some wonderful moments that I think are some of the best in the entire franchise. That includes the holy trilogy of the 90s. So, as such, I will put this in S tier. I know, crazy right off the bat. My reasoning, though, goes beyond tone. This is more than just, oh, it's dark and that makes it good. I think that Barugon is a really interesting monster. The human drama here is fantastic. I love the scene in the cave where they get the Barugon egg and one of the guys gets killed by a scorpion, and the death scene is so horrifying. And the human villain, whose name escapes me at the moment, just leaves them both for dead. It's a wonderful sequence, so sinister, and in general, the human drama in that film is top-notch. It's wonderful stuff. The monster action is really good, too. I love this movie. It's fantastic. Gamera vs. Gyaos, I'm going to throw in A tier. This is where we start to get just an inkling of the kiddie stuff that I'm not a big fan of in these movies. But Gyaos is pretty cool. I love the scene where Gyaos splits the helicopter in half with his beam. I think that Gyaos eating people is wonderful stuff. I love the destruction sequences. That whole sequence of Gyaos attacking the city at night is just wonderful stuff. In general, a very good Gamera movie. Could have been great had they cut down on the kids stuff and sort of streamlined the story, and just in general had a better human story. It's just sort of, it's almost great, and there's just elements of it where I'm like, I don't know. All right, now we've got Gamera versus Viras. I'm going to go D tier with this one. I really didn't like this movie. It was more of the same of your typical, I say typical, but for the first time in the franchise, this was full-on kiddie stuff where it's a bunch of kids roaming around a spaceship. It gets very repetitive after a while, and honestly, it's not my thing. I made that very clear in the retrospective that I made, where I kind of trashed this movie. And I also trashed the next one here, Gamera vs. Guiron, which I'm going to put here in D. I am going to put Guiron, though, ahead of Viras, solely for the reason that I love the Guiron versus Space Gyaos fight. And in general, I think that that one has a little bit more interesting things going on. But it's still extremely lackluster. Now we've got Gamera vs. Jiger. This one surprised me. I was expecting to outright hate it, and I kind of loved it. So much so, I want to put in an S. I'm going to just keep it in... See, I don't know, because I loved it so much. I'm going to put it in S. You know what? I'm going to actually put it ahead of Gamera vs. Barugon. My reasoning for this is that I love the expo setting in this movie. It's set in this World's Fair Expo. Everything is so cool looking. It's so futuristic, but of course it's set in 1970, but it just has this really awesome vibe to it. It has like kind of a Disney World vibe too. That expands outward to the human plotline, which unfortunately is the kiddie stuff, which almost makes me want to notch it down to A, but I do think that it works very well. These are the least obnoxious kids in a Gamera movie, and the only thing I don't like about it is when they are saying during the fight, like, go Gamera, punch Jiger, you know, whatever they're rambling about. It's like, why does Gamera need a backseat, like, you know, coach to help him fight? It's very dumb, and I'm not a fan of that. It gets obnoxious after a while, too. I've talked myself out of it. It's going an A. But, like, A+. It's almost an S. But just, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that whole aspect of it. I think that in general, it's still a very, very, very solid movie. This one and Barugon, honestly, they bounce back and forth for me on which one is my favorite of the Showa era. Today I'm feeling a little bit more Barugon than Gamera versus Jiger. However, yeah, that could change easily. So much so I almost want to knock this down to A. I think I'm going to do that. I think it would be fair to kind of say, like, these two are almost in a league of their own. Yeah, I almost want to knock Gyaos down. At this rate, by the end of the video, they're all going to be in D tier. No, we're sticking with this. Yeah, this is fine. This is fine. I'm going to stop arguing with myself here. Now we've got Gamera versus Zigra, a movie that I'm very conflicted about because there are elements of it that I love, elements of it that I hate. In general, I think it's a less interesting take on Godzilla versus Hedorah. What I mean by that is both movies are environmental kaiju flicks. It's in that whole 70s give a hoot, don't pollute era of, you know, like, socially aware filmmaking of Japan. And I don't know. I think that it's lackluster in its messaging. Zigra doesn't work well as an analogy for pollution, or even just representing pollution or explaining why pollution is bad, because Zigra outright, like, hates pollution and is supposed to be the villain. So when you're watching it, you're like, well, why am I agreeing with the villain here? It really doesn't make much sense. For a movie that's supposed to be anti-environmentalist, anti-pollution, the villain is anti-pollution. And so it's like, wouldn't you want it to be the other way, where the villain is pro-pollution? Like Hedorah, for example, in the Godzilla movies? I don't know. However, what saves this movie is definitely she's called, like, Woman X. She's sort of like the Terminator character that's trying to kill these kids, but she's terrible at it. It ends up in, like, this Scooby-Doo nonsense. It's great stuff. I don't know. I'm iffy on a lot of elements of it. As a result, we're going to go in C tier for this one. Again, it's fine. If you watch it, you're going to have a good time. But yeah, it's bad. And speaking of bad, Gamera Super Monster is D tier. It's essentially a clip show of all the prior movies with some superhero stuff in it. It's somewhat... Actually, it is. It's a Star Wars knockoff at points. It's bizarre, and I have a lot I want to say about it. I haven't covered it yet in the retrospective series. Stay tuned for that. I don't want to spoil it just yet, but D tier. I really don't like it. All right, now we've got what I call the holy trilogy of Gamera movies. We've got S tier, but ahead of the first one. We're going to put G3 right there. That is my ranking. These movies saved Gamera as a brand, in my opinion. I think they prevented Gamera from being forgotten as this, you know, like, Godzilla knockoff with some really goofy moments that were lambasted on Mystery Science Theater 3000. I think without these three movies, they would just kind of have that reputation of being a joke franchise. Undeservedly so. I think that there are some fantastic entries, as I've shown here with the A and B tier. But these movies really help to legitimize Gamera and to make Gamera more of an interesting monster. It's one of those interesting cases where the movies are being directed by someone who grew up with the originals, so there's a lot of reverence being placed in the campier elements that would normally be forgotten, and to me that's wonderful. Specifically why I went with this ranking here with 2, 1, 3. 2 is my favorite. I just love how there's humans being attacked while Gamera is having to deal with the threat. The effects are amazing. I love all the little Legion creatures as they're crawling up Gamera. It's horrifying stuff, and I think it's wonderful. The first movie is just a great reboot where it essentially takes Gamera and says, this is what Gamera can and should be. It's quality filmmaking, one of the best kaiju movies ever made. Yeah. And Gamera 3, I don't necessarily hate Gamera 3, but to me it just kind of comes off as being a little disconnected from the first two movies. I just think that tonally it's much, much, much darker, and I'm not too big of a fan of that. However, I do like the whole themes of revenge and this like angry adolescence, and that stuff is very compelling and very interesting. But it is my least favorite of the trilogy. Doesn't mean it's bad by any means. I love, love, love every movie in that trilogy. Gamera the Brave is very underrated. A lot of people weren't fans of this when it first came out. Even now it kind of has this reputation of sort of being like the forgotten Gamera movie, you know, where like people look over this all the time because it kind of came out in a weird point in both the world of kaiju movies and also Gamera. Like, it's not really part of the trilogy. It's not really its own thing either. It's very bizarre. It also came out 2 years after the Godzilla series wrapped up, or at least the Millennium series wrapped up, with Godzilla Final Wars in 2004. And then this came out, like, I think 2 years later, maybe it was a year later. And it's weird with how it kind of came out. It bombed at the Japanese box office. I still think it's fantastic. There's some great special effects, some great suitmation. It's really solid. There are some elements that I'm not a big fan of. In general, it's just sort of another kind of Gamera story where they're trying to make him cute for the kids, and there's a child protagonist, which is something that I am not a big fan of with this stuff. I don't know. There's just a lot of lackluster elements where parts of it work, but as a whole, as one big movie, it really doesn't come together to make something impactful. It's great if you want to watch clips of it on YouTube, but for the most part, yeah, fast forward through it. And finally, we've got Gamera Rebirth, the Netflix series that, again, nobody really talks about. They probably should. The fights are the best part. I hate to be like that, you know, brain-rotted, like, oh, I like watching the monster fights and nothing else. But that's kind of the case here. There's just not that much substance beyond the monster fights. I mean, when people do talk about it, that is what they talk about. It takes Gamera battles and just, like, amplifies them to 1,000 with visual intensity. It's just so cool. Like, I love some of this animation. But on the other hand, the story is just so forgettable to the point where I genuinely don't remember what the story is. So I'm going to throw it in C tier. I'm putting it behind Zigra, but maybe it should be here. We'll put it here. I think that's solid. And that's the tier list. There's probably going to be people that disagree with me. Completely fine. It's expected at this point. So let me know down below in the comments what your ranking is or what your tier list would be. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I would love to know. And are there any other tier lists that you want me to cover either in a live stream or on the channel? I thought about maybe not doing tier lists anymore, but I kind of got the urge today and I'm like, you know, let's just do it. Why not? So comment down below your wish list for tier lists for me to make. I will do my best to do them either in a live stream or in a video like this that's dedicated to it. And yeah, I'm Cole McCormick. You're watching Firewood Media. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to the channel members for making videos like these possible. And I will see you in the next one. Peace out.